Chapter 8. The Duty Accomplishment of a Tathagata. At that time, the great Bodhisattva Manjushri questioned the Buddha and said, "World-honored one, you have taught about the Dharma body of a Tathagata. How is this Dharma body to be characterized?" The Buddha answered the Bodhisattva Manjushri and said, "Good son, the Dharma body of a Tathagata is characterized as the full perfection of the conversion of support, which one realizes through the practice of the perfections in all the stages. Know that because of two characteristics it is inconceivable, for it is beyond verbal fabrication and is not a conditioned state. Sentient beings, in contrast, imagine and cling to what is conditioned through verbal fabrications. World-honored one, is the conversion of support of the word-hearers and the solitary enlightened ones to be termed Dharma body or not?" "Good son, it is not to be termed Dharma body." "World-honored one, what kind of body should it be called?" "Good son, it is termed a liberation body. The liberation bodies of all word-hearers and solitary enlightened ones are the equal of all Tathagatas. But because of the Dharma body, we say that they are different. Because they are different from the Dharma body of all Tathagatas, all their good qualities are different from the unlimited good qualities of a Tathagata, which cannot be grasped through reckoning or analogy." The Bodhisattva Manjushri addressed the Buddha and said, "World-honored one, how should we understand the characteristics of the birth of a Tathagata?" The Buddha answered the Bodhisattva Manjushri and said, "Good son, the action of the transformation body of a Tathagata arises in many fashions, just as do world realms. It is characterized as being adorned and supported by a host of the good qualities of a Tathagata. Know that this transformation body is characterized as having birth, whereas the Dharma body is characterized as not having birth." The Bodhisattva Manjushri addressed the Buddha and said, "World-honored one, how should we understand the skillful method whereby the transformation body is manifested by a Tathagata?" The Buddha answered the Bodhisattva Manjushri and said, "Good son, in all the 3,000 vast Buddha lands, in many honorable and high royal households, in many honorable and rich landed households, those transformation bodies enter into the womb, are born, and mature at the same time. They experience desire, leave home, and engage in the practice of asceticism. After abandoning that practice of asceticism, they realize full, supreme awakening. Such is the sequence they manifest. This is what is termed the skillful method whereby the transformation bodies are manifested." The Bodhisattva Manjushri addressed the Buddha and said, "World-honored one, how many varieties of teaching are supported by those bodies of all the Tathagatas, by means of which sentient beings already converted but not yet matured are led to maturity, and by focusing upon which those already matured are led speedily to attain liberation?" The Buddha answered the Bodhisattva Manjushri and said, "Good son, in sum, the Tathagata's teaching number 3, scriptures, discipline, and theory." "World-honored one, what is scripture? What is discipline? What is the matrix of theory?" Manjushri, wherever I have explained doctrine by relying upon summary schema, that is scripture. It relies upon the fourfold schema, the ninefold schema, or the schema of 29 items. The fourfold schema treats the hearing of doctrine, the refuge promised by doctrine thus heard, the practice of the study of doctrine needed to attain that refuge, and the realization of awakening. The ninefold schema treats the descriptions of sentient beings, their enjoyments, their birth, their subsistence after birth, their defilement and purification, their differences, the act of proclaiming doctrine, the doctrine proclaimed, and the assembling of sentient beings to hear that doctrine. The schema with 29 items addresses the first 4 themes of defilement, the cataloging of actions, their progressive actualization, the power to cause future transmigrations that comes from having conceptualized personality, and the power to cause future transmigrations that comes from having conceptualized things. The remaining items relate to purification, the application of memory to the object of meditation, the diligent zeal therein, the firm abiding of thought in meditation, the abiding in joy under present conditions, the method of transcending all states of suffering, and the perfect knowledge of these. This last is of three kinds: the perfect knowledge of the support for mistakes, the perfect knowledge of the support for heretical practices among outsiders that depend upon such mistaken concepts of sentient beings, and the perfect knowledge of the support for the absence of pride among the orthodox. The rest of the items are the support for meditation, its realization, its cultivation, its becoming stable, its varieties, its objects, the skill to know what has already been abandoned and to know what has yet to be abandoned, its distractions, the support for its lack of such distractions, perseverance in the labor and effort to meditate, the preeminent benefit of meditation, its steadfastness, the listing of its holy exercises, the listing of the aids to holy exercises, its penetration to reality, its realization of cessation, the transcendence of its worldly insight into the doctrine and discipline over the attainments of the highest insight of all heretics, and the regression that comes from its lack of cultivation. For regression comes from not cultivating this doctrine and does not refer to the fault of mistaken views. Manjushri, discipline, refers to that doctrine about the precepts and the states associated with these precepts that I have explained for word hearers and bodhisattvas. World-honored one, how many aspects are included in the precepts of a bodhisattva? Good son, you should understand that there are 7. The first is instruction in the rules to be received. The second is instruction in the theme of the grave sins. The third is instruction in the theme of the sins against discipline. The fourth is instruction in the nature of sin. The fifth is instruction in the nature of sinlessness. The sixth is instruction in how to be delivered from sin. The seventh is instruction in rejecting the code of discipline. Manjushri, the matrix of theory, refers to my doctrines on analytical exposition, which explain 11 kinds of characteristics. They are as follows. The first are the characteristics of worldly conventional meaning. The second are the characteristics of ultimate meaning. The third are the characteristics of the objects that are aids to awakening. The fourth are the characteristics of the aspects of those aids. The fifth are the characteristics of the essences of those aids. The sixth are the characteristics of the results of those aids. The seventh are the characteristics of the explanations of the experiencing of those aids. The eighth are the characteristics of the things that obstruct those aids. The ninth are the characteristics of things which harmonize with those aids. The 10th are the characteristics of defects in those aids. The 11th are the characteristics of the excellences of those aids. Understand that the characteristics of worldly conventional meaning are 3 in number. The first is instruction on persons. The second is instruction on the characteristics of clinging to what is totally imagined. The third is instruction on the activity whereby all things function. Understand that the characteristics of ultimate meaning are found in the instruction on the 7 kinds of suchness treated above. The characteristics of the objects that are aids to awakening are the teachings on all knowable matters as treated above. The characteristics of aspects are the instructions on the 8 methods of investigating, which refer to truth, proposition, faults, qualities, methodology, transmigration, reasoning, and differentiating the general. Truth refers to the suchness of all things. Proposition refers to the questions of whether or not one can establish a personality, whether or not one can establish the characteristics of clinging to what is totally imagined, whether or not one can establish a direct affirmation, a distinguishing answer, a counter-question, or an answer of silence, and whether one can establish a distinction that separates the underlying meaning from the explicit answer. Faults refer to all the defiled states that have the errors I have described by means of innumerable different methods. Qualities refer to all the superior benefits I have described by means of innumerable different methods. Methodology has 6 varieties. The first is method in regard to true reality. The second is method in regard to realization. The third is method in regard to teaching. The fourth is method in regard to avoiding the 2 extremes. The fifth is method in regard to inconceivable discourse. The sixth is method in regard to underlying meaning. Transmigration refers to the 3 times, past, present, and future, the 3 characteristics of the conditioned arising, abiding, and dying, and the 4 kinds of causes that bring this progression about, that is, direct, antecedent, objective, and dominant. Reasoning is of 4 varieties. The first is reasoning from observation. The second is reasoning from occurrence. The third is reasoning from demonstration. The fourth is reasoning from reality. Reasoning from observation means reasoning from the causes and conditions that produce conditioned states of being and from the concomitant language that describes them. Reasoning from occurrence means reasoning from causes and conditions that result in things, that bring them to completion, or that bring them into action once they have arisen. Reasoning from demonstration means reasoning from causes and conditions that cause meanings proposed, explained, and defined to be both valid and understood. This reasoning has 2 varieties, the purified and the impure. In sum, there are 5 purified reasonings and 7 impure reasonings. There are 5 aspects of reasoning that are termed purified. The first is characterized as attained through direct insight. The second is characterized as attained through the support of that direct insight. The third is characterized as engendered through various analogies. The fourth is characterized as truly perfected. The fifth is characterized as well-purified teaching. That which is characterized as ascertained through direct insight consists in what is known by direct perception in the world. For example, that all conditioned states are impermanent, that all conditioned states involve suffering, that all conditioned states are without a self. Such reasonings are said to be attained through direct insight. That which is characterized as ascertained through the support of direct insight refers to those things that, although not attained through direct insight, can be inferred. Because they can be supported upon the obvious basis of impermanence, which is a matter of direct insight, one can ascertain that all conditioned states are instantaneous, that other worlds have sentient beings, that pure and impure actions are never lost. One can ascertain that the various differences among sentient beings depend upon their various actions. One can ascertain that the suffering or joy of sentient beings is based upon their pure or impure actions. Such reasonings are said to be attained through the support of direct insight. That which is characterized as engendered through various analogies consists in drawing upon facts commonly known in the world, such as the birth and death of all conditioned states, both internal and external, in order to offer an analogy. It consists in drawing upon commonly known images in the world, such as what it is like to suffer by being born, etc., in order to offer an analogy. It consists in drawing upon commonly known images in the world, such as the absence of mastery, in order to draw an analogy. It consists in drawing upon commonly known examples, such as external prosperity, in order to offer an analogy. Such logical principles are said to be characterized as engendered by analogy. That which is characterized as truly perfected consists in the ability to definitively establish a proposition as ascertained through direct insight, through the support of that direct insight, and through analogy. That which is characterized as well-purified teaching consists in what is taught through omniscience, such as discourse on the final quiescence of cessation. Such reasonings are said to be characterized as well-purified teachings. Good son, these 5 characteristics are the purified, logical principles of investigation. Because they are pure, you must cultivate them.